Hello, and welcome to Saturday's show at the Wacky Bookshelf. For those new here, this channel is all about books you didn't know about. If you are a returning subscriber, we thank you for watching our videos and building the channel. We are a community of explorative readers, and we are always open to new book suggestions. All of our book reviews can be found in the description below, along with our merchandise and book blog. Please leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel for new content. Thank you for your support, and now on to today's book.
Profit and Punishment by Tony Messenger is a compelling exposé that uncovers the pervasive and insidious practices of the American criminal justice system, where financial exploitation of the poor is rampant. Messenger, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, delves into the lives of individuals ensnared by a system that prioritizes profit over justice. The book is a powerful indictment of the ways in which local governments and private companies exploit low-income individuals through fines, fees, and debtors' prisons, perpetuating a cycle of poverty and punishment. Messenger meticulously documents the stories of those affected, providing a human face to the statistics and legal jargon. He examines how municipalities across the country have turned to punitive financial practices to balance their budgets, disproportionately targeting the poor and marginalized. These practices often lead to devastating consequences for individuals and families who find themselves trapped in a relentless cycle of debt and incarceration. The book is structured around several key case studies, highlighting different aspects of the problem. Messenger introduces readers to real people who have suffered under this system, including single mothers, veterans, and low-wage workers. Through their stories, he illustrates how minor infractions can lead to exorbitant fines, which, when unpaid, result in jail time and additional fees, creating an inescapable financial burden. Profit and Punishment also explores the broader implications of these practices on society. Messenger argues that the criminalization of poverty exacerbates social inequality and undermines trust in the justice system. He calls for comprehensive reforms, advocating for policies that prioritize rehabilitation and fairness over punitive financial measures. Overall, Profit and Punishment is a deeply researched and emotionally powerful critique of a broken system. It combines investigative journalism with poignant storytelling to shed light on the human cost of turning justice into a revenue stream. Messenger's work is a call to action, urging readers to recognize the urgent need for reform in how the justice system handles economic penalties and to consider the broader implications for democracy and social justice. Tony Messenger begins Profit and Punishment by laying the groundwork for his exploration of how the American criminal justice system financially exploits its most vulnerable citizens. He outlines the historical context and the economic pressures that have led municipalities to adopt punitive financial practices. This introduction sets the stage for the detailed case studies and broader analysis that follow. The heart of the book is its detailed case studies, which bring to life the abstract issues of fines, fees, and debtors' prisons. Messenger introduces readers to individuals whose lives have been upended by minor infractions that spiraled into financial catastrophe. One of the first stories Messenger tells is of a single mother, arrested for a minor traffic violation, who ends up with thousands of dollars in fines and fees. Unable to pay, she is repeatedly jailed, losing her job and facing the threat of losing custody of her children. Messenger details her struggles to navigate a system that seems designed to entrap rather than help. Another poignant story involves a veteran with PTSD who finds himself unable to pay parking tickets. As fines accumulate, he faces jail time and loses access to VA benefits due to incarceration. Messenger uses this case to highlight the particularly harsh treatment of individuals who have already served their country and now find themselves abandoned by the very institutions meant to support them. A third case follows a low-wage worker arrested for a minor non-violent offense. His inability to pay court fees leads to repeated jail sentences, which in turn make it impossible for him to hold down a job. Messenger shows how the criminal justice system effectively ensures that poverty becomes a life sentence. Beyond individual stories, Messenger provides a systemic analysis of how and why these practices have become so widespread. He traces the roots of the problem to underfunded local governments, which increasingly rely on fines and fees as revenue sources. This reliance creates a perverse incentive to criminalize minor infractions and to levy exorbitant penalties on those least able to pay. Messenger explores the financial incentives that drive these practices, including the role of private companies that contract with local governments to manage probation and collections. These companies often add their own fees, exacerbating the financial burden on the poor. Corruption and lack of oversight further entrench these exploitative practices. The book also delves into the legal and political context that allows these practices to flourish. Messenger discusses court rulings, legislation, and political pressures that have shaped the landscape of fines and fees. He highlights how legal protections meant to prevent debtors' prisons have been eroded, allowing the criminal justice system to function as a de facto debt collection agency. Messenger connects the dots between these financial practices and broader societal issues. He argues that the criminalization of poverty deepens social inequalities and erodes public trust in the justice system. By disproportionately affecting marginalized communities, these practices perpetuate cycles of poverty and exclusion. The book examines the ripple effects on families and communities. Children suffer when parents are jailed for inability to pay fines, and communities are destabilized as more individuals are trapped in a cycle of debt and incarceration. Messenger highlights the long-term social costs, including increased crime and decreased economic mobility. Messenger places the American experience in a global context, comparing it to other countries where similar practices exist. He notes that while the specifics may differ, the underlying issues of economic exploitation and systemic injustice are common themes. This comparative analysis underscores the need for comprehensive reforms, not just in the US, but worldwide. In the concluding sections of the book, Messenger outlines potential solutions and reforms. He advocates for a shift away from punitive financial measures towards policies that emphasize rehabilitation and fairness. Specific recommendations include abolishing fines and fees for minor offenses. Messenger argues for the elimination of fines and fees for minor infractions, suggesting that community service or other non-monetary penalties could be more effective and just. Ending debtors' prisons. He calls for strict enforcement of laws against debtors' prisons, ensuring that no one is jailed simply for inability to pay. Reforming probation practices. Messenger highlights the need for reforms in probation practices, particularly those involving private companies, to prevent additional financial exploitation. Increased funding for public services. Addressing the root cause, Messenger advocates for increased funding for local governments to reduce their reliance on fines and fees as revenue sources. Comprehensive legal and policy changes. Finally, he calls for comprehensive legal and policy changes at both the state and federal levels to address systemic issues and protect the rights of the poor. Profit and Punishment concludes with a powerful call to action. Messenger urges readers to recognize the moral and ethical implications of a justice system that profits from the punishment of the poor. He emphasizes the need for collective action and policy reforms to create a more just and equitable society. Through his detailed research and compelling storytelling, Messenger makes a convincing case for why these changes are not only necessary, but urgent. Criminalization of poverty. The book highlights how the criminal justice system disproportionately targets the poor, turning minor infractions into life-altering financial burdens. Profit motive injustice. Messenger exposes how financial incentives drive punitive practices, leading to exploitation and corruption within the system. Systemic inequality. The criminalization of poverty exacerbates social inequalities, trapping marginalized communities in cycles of debt and incarceration. Human cost. By focusing on personal stories, the book underscores the profound human cost of these practices, affecting not just individuals, but families and communities. Need for reform. Messenger advocates for comprehensive reforms, including abolishing fines and fees for minor offenses, ending debtors' prisons, and reforming probation practices. Public awareness and action. The book calls for increased public awareness and collective action to address and rectify the injustices within the criminal justice system. Moral and ethical imperative. At its core, Profit and Punishment is a moral and ethical critique of a system that profits from the suffering of the poor, urging readers to consider the broader implications for justice and democracy. Profit and Punishment is a searing examination of how the American justice system has been co-opted by financial interests, perpetuating cycles of poverty and punishment. Messenger's work is a clarion call for reform and a more equitable society.
And that concludes Saturday's Wacky book summary. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed this content, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. This book and many more can be found below in the description. You can support our community by engaging in the comments section and share if you think others would enjoy this content as well. Thank you again for visiting the channel, and we will see you around soon.